Thanks, Thomas. And before we talk about documentation, just let me briefly show you, since some people have been asking me about the Docker file. But Thomas sent you a much simpler version than mine. I thought mine was simple, but that one is much simpler than mine. But this one, I use as a base image Ubuntu. And then I define something here for Ubuntu, so the non-interactive front end. And then I update, I run this apt-get update, install some certificates, and here I install Pixi. Then I add the Pixi to the path. I copy, you have to be in your root file to copy dot and /pcoffee. That's the file where you're going to find everything in your container. And then I set the working directory, which is /pcoffee. So when I run the container, it's going to open right in that place. I install Pixi, the Pixi install, because I had a problem at the beginning. For some reason, every time that I was running a container, it was installing something, and it was taking a lot of time. So that was the solution, but maybe that's the problem why my Docker image is so big. And then run Pixi shell. So I define here. That's what this is what I define here, and that's why when I run the container from this image, I start from, or I go to the pcoffee environment, the project environment. So again, you can try it and see if it works for you. But anyway, we will share all these files so you can have access to them. But okay, sorry for that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about documentation, in particular for scientific software. This is one of the last lectures, the last one, of course, today. But when we think about software development, documentation must be one of the first things that you have to think about when you start writing the first line of code. Documentation is important for scientific software. So the goal of this lesson is to understand why documentation is important for sustainable scientific software. We're going to use Sphinx, and we're going to build documentation from Python docstrings, Jupyter notebooks, and we're going to see how publish automatically using CI/CD. So of course, at the end, the idea is that you can use these to generate the documentation for the pcoffee project. So again, we're going to start with some ideas about documentation in scientific software, why it is important, the types of documentation, and then briefly something about Sphinx, and then we're going to start the hands-on session, which we're going to see how we manage that since we are having some issues with the internet connection. Okay, so what do you think about this? Documentation is important for sustainable scientific software. Is that true? Do you agree with that? Is it really important?
Yes.
I thought so. But then why, well, it's not always the case, but sometimes when we see some repos and we look for the documentation, sometimes there is no documentation. Sometimes it's really, the documentation is so poor that you don't understand even what that package does. So, and that's basically because, well, this is, I don't know if you see this, or maybe I don't have to explain this, but this is, I shouldn't say anything, no? But this is, maybe sometimes we think that we are Thor, but we're not. But this is like when you read the code, you wrote a month ago and you're still able to understand what it does, right? Well, I don't know. Again, I can start a code today and maybe tomorrow I have to finish something else and maybe I don't see that code for 1 week, and the next time that I go back to the code, I don't remember what I was doing. Well, of course, I remember in general what I was doing, but I don't remember many details. And if I don't start writing what I'm doing, then I'm going to have to start from scratch again. In just 1 week, well, maybe 2 weeks, a month. But then, when we think about coding, we have all these tools that we have been working with during the last few days. But when we think about the README file, it's like, do I have to do that? Yeah. Documentation is important for sustainable scientific software because code without docs is not reproducible, it's not reusable, and it's not understandable. And think about you, yourself, your future you. That's going to be the most important user of your own code. So there are 3 types of documentation. Well, in general, there's the code documentation, the user documentation, and tutorials. So let's start with the code documentation, which is basically the reference. And the audience of this code documentation are developers, advanced users, and you. Usually it includes some topics like APIs, function parameters, return types, docstrings. Well, they are generated. Well, the source are docstrings, which are auto-generated, and in general, the documentation are oriented to give information. So, for instance, explain what does a function, or things like that. The user documentation, which is the narrative, the main audience for these are users and you. And it usually includes installation, workflows, theory, and the source are reStructuredText and Markdown, especially Markdown. And the main goal here is to understand what the software does. For instance, how it is simulating my data. And sometimes it is, I have found many times that there is only one, sometimes people combine both. So the code documentation is the same user documentation, and it's sometimes it's really hard to follow that if you don't really understand what the software does. And the last one is tutorials. That's another type of documentation where you have the examples. So the audience are the learners, and as usual, you. And usually you can find there step-by-step lessons, you can find results, you can find visualizations. Usually the source of these tutorials are Jupyter notebooks. And of course, the goal for these tutorials is to learn. So you want to see results as soon as possible. So these are the 3 types of documentations that we can find. And I know it's a lot of work, but it's always important to work on this to make sure that your code is, or your software, scientific software, is reproducible, is reusable, and is understandable. We're going to use Sphinx. Sphinx is a documentation compiler. Sphinx is not going to do the documentation for you. Okay? And usually it reads a configuration file. I'm going to show that in a moment. it looks for the docstrings in Python, docstrings in Python. That's why it is important to write good docstrings in Python. Sometimes you find that, for instance, some functions, they don't have a docstring. And it is important to explain what the function does and show, for instance, an example. It parses .rst, these are restructured text and Markdown files. All of them are Markdown files, and outputs HTML or PDF, depending on what you want to get at the end. It's the standard for scientific Python. For instance, for NumPy, SciPy, AstroPy. Let me show you, I think, this is the ReadTheDocs. This is I think this is the documentation of the ReadTheDocs. Yes, this is the documentation. If you go down, this is built with Sphinx using a theme provided by ReadTheDocs. So I'm going to show you today how to, well, that's one option. Of course, at the end, there are many options, but this is one theme. It's really nice, but we're going to see how we can create this kind of documentation using Sphinx with a theme similar to, well, actually it's the same one that they ReadTheDocs. And it supports citations, cross-referencing, and math natively. So I'm gonna, I was planning to run everything here, but I know there are some issues with the internet connection. So I'm gonna explain you here, step by step, what you can do. And then in the hands-on session, you're gonna follow, sorry for that, but you're gonna follow the slides to follow the example. Remember, I think it's this one. Remember that at the end, the idea is to generate the documentation for the P-Coffee project. So okay. Since I already created everything here, so I'm going to show you how it works. So the step by step. So for this example, you're going to initialize a Pixi project, and then you're going to start defining a project. Oh yes, sorry for. Let me see if I can. Maybe that's too much. Okay. Sorry, when I change this, everything changes. I have to. But it was too big now. I don't see anything. Okay, I think this one. Is that okay? Okay. So the idea is that at the beginning you're going to start a new project. So you're going to create a new directory. And then you're going to go into that directory, and then you're going to do Pixi init dot. Once you do that, then why? Okay. Then once you do that, you're going to see something like this. You're going to see the pixel.log and the pixi.toml. And once you're there, you're going to go with Pixi shell. And with Pixi shell, you're going to enter the project environment. Once you're there, you're going to add these dependencies, Python, Sphinx, and Sphinx _rtd theme. And this is the theme that you saw here for the ReadTheDocs. Sorry. Here, ReadTheDocs. This one. And basically, what we're going to get is this. This is the pCoffee documentation. I'm going to show you that in a moment. But for those themes, Sphinx comes with different options. These are built-in themes. All of these that you can see here, the classic one, Alabaster, Sphinx docs, scrolls, traditional, so you can choose whatever you like. For this example, I'm going to use this one for the ReadTheDocs. Just again, you could use anything. Then, once you're there, you're going to run a sphinx-quickstart docs. So what this does is to create, you see here, this directory docs. I'm going to go to docs. And this command, sphinx-quickstart, is going to create a bunch of files and directories. Actually, it's going to create, I have a lot of things here, but it's going to create this build directory, which is going to be empty at the beginning. And it's going to create the make.bat, the make file, and this source directory. And inside that source directory, it's going to create the conf.py, the index.rst, and this directory and this one. So it creates that automatically. If you see, let's take a look at, this is at conf.py. Conf.py is the place where, well, it's the configuration file for the Sphinx documentation builder. So, so if you see here, you find the project information. So the project is called project, very interesting. The copyright to 2026 Alex, the author is Alex, and release. Actually, when you run Sphinx dash, let me just sorry, that happens every time that I change the source, the font, the size. I'm going to do it here so you see what it does. I can run that without any problems, I think. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to create a project. Project. I go to CD project. Then I do. There's nothing here. Then I do Pixi shell. Then I enter to the. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I haven't done Pixi init dot. Now I can enter the project environment, Pixi shell. Okay. Then I'm going to do pix add Python Sphinx and Sphinx RTD theme. Okay, it's working. So, and then here I'm going to do Sphinx again. Yeah, if you see there is just the Pixi log and Pixi toml files, then I'm going to do Sphinx quick start docs. So this is what happens. It's going to ask you a couple of questions. So you have to enter some values for the settings. So the first question is separate source and build directories. My suggestion there is to say yes. So you have, once it creates the docs directory, it's going to create a build directory and a source directory, completely different. So that's much better. So yes, the project name, again, I'm going to put Pick Coffee. That's the project name. The author's name, my name or your name. Project release, for instance, version 0.1. You can put whatever you want. If the document is written in a language other than English, but it says project language English by default, so just enter. And then you see it created this docs directory. I can go to docs, and then this is what Sphinx created. So we have the build directory, make.bat, makefile files, the source directory, and inside that one the configuration file, the index.rst, that's for that's markdown file. We're going to see that in a moment, and those two directories, static and templates. So if you see inside build, there's nothing, and inside source, conf, and the configuration file and the index file. So I can already create a documentation or a HTML file. If I do make HTML, then it's going to run like this, and you see that the HTML pages are in build. So now I can see again 3, and if you see at the beginning, build didn't have anything inside. So after I run make HTML, it created this doctrines directory and the HTML directory. So, and the important one is here, the index.html. So I'm going to run that one. This is build, HTML, index, and this is what we get. That's a Pick Coffee documentation. But we haven't done anything. We have just created the docs directory, and I just used sphinx-quickstart, and with that, we got this. Now, of course, okay, let's take a look at again the configuration file. In the configuration file, so again, we have the project information, Pick Coffee, the copyrights, the author, and the release. These were the questions that we answered at the beginning. And there is general configuration. Here we are going to start including extensions, execute patterns, templates path. And here, in particular, here we're going to use the extensions. I'm going to show you that in a moment. And then the options for the HTML output. So if you remember, I told you that the built-in themes in Sphinx are here. So if you see Alabaster is this one, the one that we just created. And this HTML theme is here, Alabaster. So if I change that, I'm going to get something different. Let's try something different. So Um, um, so we're going to change alabaster for this classic one. That looks good. Then again in docs, we do again make HTML. It runs again. For some reason, I don't see the bottom of OK. And then again, I can see build HTML index, and you see this was the first one, the alabaster theme, and this one is the classic one. Just by changing the HTML theme here in the configuration file. The other important file is this index.rst. We can go to that one. Oh, it's source. So here, this is, if you see here, pcoffee documentation, this is the master file. It's the information that you see here on the front page. This is pcoffee documentation. Add your content using Markdown syntax or reStructuredText. Here the documentation. And this is the place where we have the table, the contents of the documentation. We can, for instance, we can add something here. This is the start of the awesome pcoffee documentation. And then we can go back to docs, and then again we make HTML, and then we have to, well, should refresh here, it should be enough. Then you see the change here. This is the start of the awesome pcoffee documentation. Okay. Now, we're gonna do something else, and it's we're gonna leave this. We're gonna create a Python file, which is a function, and with a docstring, I'm gonna see how we can generate that the documentation from that docstring. So I'm gonna go to project, and I'm gonna create this source file, directory, and there I'm gonna create this calculations.py, and that file is here, so you can take a look at that. But I have already that file here, so let me, oh, shoot. It's changing and changing. But just let me copy and paste that file, because I already have that file here, so I'm not gonna oops, it's not here, it's not here, it's not here. Okay, just copy paste this and that's it. So this is the so it's just a Python file to calculate the square of a value. So And here in the docstrings, we see the explanation of what this function does, compute the square of a number, the parameters, the input parameter, what it returns the square value of that input number. So it's there, okay. We can go back to the project. Have the docs here. And then I'm gonna go to the configuration file. Source. Sorry, docs source. And in the configuration file, I'm going to include these extensions. This is the autodoc extension, or the sphinx extension, the autodoc, Napoleon, and the ReadTheDocs theme. So, and I'm going to include those extensions here. So, sphinx xt autodoc, and then, oops, this is not the, oh shoot, okay, and then sphinx extension, and sphinx, this is ReadTheDocs theme. Okay, and in the HTML theme, I'm gonna remove the classic. I'm gonna include the Sphinx LTD theme. Okay. In addition to that, I have to create another Markdown file, which is the api.rst file in the source directory. And here, this is what I have to get to include in this file. So let's do vim docs source and api.rst. And inside, I'm going to include the auto module calculations as the name of the Python file. So API reference, and this is going to be automatically generated in the documentation. API reference, and then dot auto module calculations, and we're going to include all other options. So members. Again, you're going to see this in the slides, so the idea is that you can follow them without any problem, and show inheritance. Okay. And then, in addition to that, we have to add the API in the configuration file. So we go to vim docs source again, configuration file. No, it's not in the configuration file. Sorry, I made a mistake there. It's in the index file. So you can see that in the talk tree. So here we include API. Have to change that. Okay. In addition to that, we have to add something in the configuration file. It's also here in the in this images here. In order to, we have to set the to add the path where it where the Python file is. So let me see. Project. Okay. Then it's in docs source conf. It's here. I'm just gonna copy and paste this. And I have to add that part here at the beginning of the configuration file, just to find the path, to add the path, sorry. Okay, so I think we're done. Then after that, I can run again, make HTML. Oops. It's in the docs. So make HTML. And then it works fine. If there is any warning or something like that, you're going to see here something in red. So again, this is the place where the HTML file is. So we can, I already opened that one, so I think I can just refresh that. So this is what we have. This is the pCoffee documentation, including, well, the ReadTheDocs theme. And here we have the API reference, and this is the reference to the Python file, the mathematical utilities for the S3 school. And we have here, remember you don't have to remember, I can show you that. So it's not here. So it's source. Calculations. So if you see here, this is the Python file with the docstrings, which is defined actually from here. This is the mathematical utilities for the S3 school, is right here. And then calculation dot square, the function, square here, compute the square of a number, compute the square of a number, and all the information is here. And here the copyright 2026, the author, and again you see the same information that you saw in the ReadTheDocs documentation with Sphinx using a theme provided by the ReadTheDocs. And we can go back to here. And again, we can modify here in the index.rst file. Any questions or comments? Don't worry, you're going to have time later if I'm going too fast. You're going to have, hopefully we're going to have time to run everything. Okay, this is for the docstrings part. Now, what if we want to include the notebook in the documentation? So to include a notebook in the documentation, so we have here our pCoffee documentation, HTML. We're gonna add some extensions to the configuration file. So we're gonna add Pixi. We're gonna add with Pixi nbsphinx, which is gonna help us to deal with the notebooks in Sphinx, and the IPY kernel as well. So the internet is working. Good. Okay, so what we have to do is to create also a file, when I use touch, in the source, okay, project. In the source directory. And I'm going to call this tutorial dot tutorial dot IPython notebook. And then I have to add nbsphinx to extensions in the configuration file and add the tutorial in the index file in the source directory. So let's go first to the configuration file. In the configuration file, then we include in the extensions here nbsphinx, nbsphinx, and in the index file we include the tutorial here. So if you see, what we include here is what we see on the left, the contents. It's the table of contents tree. So then again we go to docs and then again make HTML. And we have a problem. We have an issue here. The problem is that I just created a notebook, but that notebook is empty. I didn't put anything in that notebook. So when it tries to create the documentation, it doesn't find anything in there. So we have to put something in that notebook. So to do that, I'm just going to copy and paste. I think in the Pixi repo there is a Jupyter notebook. So you can copy and paste that one here just to practice. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to show you how. Okay, that's the docs. See the docs. And it's cat source tutorial. And this is a tutorial. You're going to see what it does. Just let me change. Oh, shoot. I want to do this, but just let me copy and paste here this, and because I knew it was going to be okay, and I think it was here. So you can use the Jupyter notebook, the Pixi repo, to do this. You can copy and paste it here. So I have it already here. So if you check the Python, the tutorial file, well, you find this. And then you can run again, make HTML. And then it's already built. And then if you go, here's the tutorial. So if you remember, in the index file, I added the API and then tutorial. They are both here in that order, in the same order. And the tutorial, the notebook is just says this is a demonstration notebook. And here print welcome to the tutorial, welcome to the tutorial. So that's how we include the a notebook in the documentation. So we have the docstrings here and the tutorial here, the notebook here. Any questions? Comments?
Could you show again in index.rst?
Which one?
The file, RST file, the index.
The RST file. Index. This one. This is what you see here. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Let me. This is the master file, and this is what you see here. Pixi documentation. This is Markdown. This is the start of the awesome Pixi documentation. and the contents here in the table of contents tree. The API here, and the tutorial here. Okay, the last part, and this is where if you haven't followed everything in detail, you can do that now. The last part has to do with the workflow file, how we can make this documentation. We want this documentation to be generated automatically in our repo in GitHub. So what we have to do, first of all, is to create, leave this, you have to leave the docs file, directory, and you go, okay. Here, and in this place where you have the .git attributes and the .git ignore, you're going to create a directory, which is .github, and inside that directory, the workflows directory, and inside that, so we're going to create that here, so it's already created, .github, and inside that we're going to create this a YAML file, it's GitHub workflows, which we are going to call docs.yaml. And in that file, we're going to include, or you're going to include, this, this part. So this file, which we have the document name, the name is the documentation. It's on every push in the repo, and then it runs on Ubuntu, it checks the actions, GitHub Actions, and then the first thing that it's going to do is to set up Pixi, the Pixi version, and in this part we build the docs. So Pixi automatically puts Sphinx built in the path, and this is actually, if you saw, I was always using make HTML to generate the documentation, but you can also run it in this way. Pixi runs Sphinx build b HTML doc source docs build HTML, and the deploy to GitHub pages. So with this, you can make your you can generate automatically your docs in GitHub using CI/CD every time that somebody makes a push. But this is a push on main. Okay, that's the thing. So the idea now is, if you didn't follow all these steps that I show you on how to create this awesome Pcoffee documentation, so the next, I don't know, hour maybe, if you can follow this, of course, to create the Pcoffee documentation, and if you want to give it a try to the CI, well, this process to deploy to GitHub Pages the documentation of the Pcoffee project, it's a good time to do it. I don't know if there's any question or comments, or is it clear? more or less. Yes.
We saw before that Jupyter notebooks are not optimal for GitHub.
Jupyter notebooks are not optimal for?
Yes, for GitHub. It's better to use JupyText. And does nbsphinx works also for JupyText? I don't know.
Oh.
Because if there is an image result on a Jupyter notebook, we will have problem to push or something like that.
Yeah, but the point is that the doc will be built in your CI. So the notebook as well will be run in your CI by nbsphinx. So you should not have any output image in your notebook first, which are not stored in Git. But then it's run during the CI, and then you can build images, do whatever you want, and it's kept as an artifact. So it does not clutter your Git repo, but still you can see it online with Sphinx like that.
Yeah, if for instance you see this is the notebook, the tutorial notebook, but when you generate the documentation, you get it in the, let's say, the notebook, the usual notebook form.
It's also a way to make sure your notebook can run and to test your notebook.
Okay, so then the idea is, well, I guess in the next 50 minutes, more or less, to follow these instructions to you can do that for the PCoffee project, or if you want to follow just to see how this can be created and then apply it to the PCoffee documentation would be nice. But at least if you can play around a little bit with in particular with the configuration file, and you can change different themes and see which one you like. You don't have to use this one. This is just an example. But you can, as I showed you before, let me here, there are many themes, and if you have, I don't know, notebooks and you want to include them here, or if you have Python, Python files and want to include the docstrings here and see how it looks like, and well, the part of the deploy to GitHub Pages of the documentation. So if you have any questions, I'm going to be around and you can start and